Peace, family. Y'all know who it is. It's Bakari Lumumba, back once again, the progenitor of LumumbaSpeaks.com, a Black and empowerment initiative where we believe we can gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black. Before we get started, make sure you hit the subscribe and the like button. Make sure it's thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. So we're going to be having a conversation today. I went and saw The Woman King, right? So I will start off by stating, so I was very critical of the film, right? When I saw the trailer, when I learned about who wrote the film, who wrote the actual script, directing the whole nine, I was very critical, right? And I talked about even I shared some of the thoughts of Dr. T. Hassan Johnson. He argued that from the actual trailer from the film, it looked like it was going to be intersectionality on steroids. And what he meant by that was this concept of Black women being in a situation in which they wanted to be respected like white men, feared like Black men, but then of course pedestalized like white women. And so I think that was a particular issue. So Ghost says for the theater packed. Actually, no, it wasn't. The theater wasn't packed, but we're gonna get into that, brother. So stick around. We're gonna get into that. So watch the film. So first thing first, and I state this. I'm very consistent with this. I am not an advocate of Black people watching movies to learn their history, first and foremost, right? So let me state that I am not an advocate of Black people watching movies to learn their history. I believe that if we want to learn that history, we got to do the dirty work, and that's actually read scholarly literature. So before we get started, I have a couple books on, of course, that talks about unfortunately, the transatlantic slave trade. And I really don't like to use the term slave trade because that tends to be connotated with business gone bad with collateral damage when you talk about what took place to our ancestors. So, but get started, just some scholarly literature on the slave trade. We have, of course, The Diligent by Robert Harms, A Voyage Through the Worlds of the Slave Trade. You all may not be able to see that. Let me see if I can push this ring light back a little bit. Have another book, Fighting the Slave Trade, West African Strategies. And then, of course, we have the book, Anthropologist, Slavery by Claude Meillassoux, A Room of Iron and Gold. These books give a historiographic, detailed, introspective view of, unfortunately, the transatlantic slave trade, right? So if you really want to truly learn about what took place, what transpired, you're not going to get that from watching the movie. You're going to have to actually read, and then they'll do a deep dive into the scholarly literature on the subject matter. And I'm very consistent across the board when we talk about learning the history of Malcolm X. Many people want to watch the movie. As when the movie was had some things that were correct, but some that, of course, weren't. Glory, for example, Miracle at St. Anna, Red Tails, you name it. These movies tend to be what a Hollywood dramatization of what transpired in actual history. So just want to put that out there, right? So we're going to talk about, thanks for answering. We'll see you soon. Don't like packed theaters. Hey, no doubt. I like to stretch out half space to myself. So I'm with you there. So The Woman King, right? So of course, this is the story of the Dahomey, the female warriors of the Dahomey. The Europeans call them the Amazons of Dahomey. So I will start off by stating this. It was a good movie. I'm just going to be completely honest. It was a good movie. Great acting. Viola Davis did her thug thizzle, right? She literally did her thug thizzle. As we know, Viola Davis is one of the few to have a rare accomplishment in the acting industry in terms of she won the Triple Crown. She won an Oscar, Academy Award, and a Tony Award. So the sister, she's about that life. She actually has great acting skills, and she had a great performance. I think the cinematography was great as well. The acting overall was great. But there was of course, some historical inaccuracies. The idea that she, of course, was the initiator of trying to end the slave trade, and that there was this goal that, hey, we're all one people. We can't focus on our different ethnic or tribal groups. We know historically that is inaccurate, right? The idea that they wanted to end the slave trade because they saw what it was doing to Africa is, of course, fictitious, as we know, unfortunately, with all the African nation states who at some point fought against the slave trade, it was because the Europeans were encroaching on their land. The Europeans grew more powerful, and as they realized that they were in a situation where it was going to be a lose-lose, that's when they sought to, of course, fight back. But it was a very good movie. There was some heart-wrenching, of course, parts of the movie where, some prominent characters, principal characters in the film died. So that was kind of, oh man, it kind of poured on your heart there. But overall, it was a good film. I can't lie, right? And one of the major concerns I had was this concept of this about the woman king, right? So this is kind of like this woman taking this on this masculine role. And so there was a belief by many, including myself, that it would put Black men in a very weak and effeminate light, while Black women would be, of course, seen as strong and masculinized. However, that wasn't the case. I got to be honest, that wasn't the case in the film. We do know that, unfortunately, Edward Said, he wrote a book way back in the 1970s, early 70s, I believe, entitled Orientalism, where he talks about how colonizers tend to paint a picture of the colonized man as feminine and weak, and the colonized woman as masculine, right? To, of course, create a dynamic, unhealthy dynamic between, of course, the colonized male and female, but also to use it as justification for why they were colonized, right? So your women were colonized because they aren't feminine like our women, who are the paragon, of course, womanhood and femininity. Then, of course, the same could be said about, of course, the men. But that wasn't the situation in the film. I just have to give a props. It was a good movie. Of course, there was some historical inaccuracies. We know that the kingdom of Dahomey were one of the preeminent slave trading nations. And this was even touched on in the film, that how Dahomey became wealthy, of course, was because of their role in the slave trade, and that they were able to, of course, acquire great wealth due to the selling of human beings as capital. And so it was extremely problematic to see those type of things. But I have to give credit where credit is due. It was a good movie. Many of the fears that many of us had regarding that this would be a negative depiction of Black men, which we tend to see in Hollywood on a regular basis, wasn't the case. So good movie. I'm not going to give away all the details, of course, because I think many people want to go out and check it out and see it. But of course, my position was, I had some concerns with the whole historical inaccuracies, of course, of the movie, as I do all the time. But it was a great film, great acting, and I would just state that they did not promote a negative version of the man, and then, of course, promoting the woman as being strong or masculine. That just wasn't the case. Many people believe that would be the case, but it wasn't the case. So a good movie, check it out. Once again, of course, it was not historically accurate. And how the movie ended was, we would wish that's what would actually have taken place. If that was true, we wouldn't be here in the West. But with that being said, I'm going to put the link in the chat, and then we can open up for a conversation. Amora Jones, very good movie, yet they kept saying it's a dark cycle. And when the palm oil industry wasn't profitable, King Gezo went back to the slave trade. This is true. Actually, we know King Gezo. Great point, Amora Jones. And you're going to tap in. I'm going to make sure I put the link in the chat. And what we know about King Gezo, just a little background, historical background. King Gezo became king because he led a coup to have his brother killed, right? And so, of course, King Gezo comes to power. And while the kingdom of Dahomey actually at one point kind of curtailed their role in the slave trade, it was due to the British actually trying to imposing a treaty, right? But then, of course, the palm oil trade wasn't as lucrative. And of course, in the movie, it depicts, of course, Viola Davis's character as the one who is arguing that we should practice, engage in the palm oil trade. But it's actually King Gezo in actual history. But as we know, they went back into it, and even King Gezo ended up being, of course, killed, and his son came to power. We're rather unfortunate. We talk about written in blood in terms of the succession of rulers of a country. Oftentimes, unfortunately, is due to an assassination. So that was rather unfortunate. But I put the link in the chat if you want to come in, be part of the conversation. As I stated, it's a good movie. There are some historical inaccuracies, as is the case with all Hollywood films that are historical in nature. But my fears were put to rest. It was a good film, great cinematography, great acting. Viola Davis did her thug dizzle, as all the actors and actresses did. And so we can have a conversation about The Woman King. If you saw the film, you can, of course, come tap in and be part of the conversation. If you didn't see the film, you can, of course, tap in and we can have a conversation about your preliminary thoughts leading up to you watching the film, or any concerns that you may have moving forward. So once again, the link is in the chat. Come be part of the conversation. But once again, as I stated before, I'm not an advocate of Black people watching movies as a way of learning the history. I believe that we have to do a deep dive into the scholarly literature, historical literature, to learn about what truly transpired in our history. And to do that, we have to make sure we're moving away from the idea and concept of being intellectually lazy. Right. And I think that just as a people, as a fact, we should be intellectually curious. We should always want to have the those intellectual juices flowing. And I think this promotes critical thinking and can help us oftentimes when we're trying to navigate our way through this, of course, very difficult world that we live in. So once again, the link is in the chat. Make sure you hit the subscribe and the like button. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. We're going to have a conversation about The Woman King. I gave my thoughts on, of course, the movie. Want to know what your thoughts are, or if you've seen the movie. And of course, we can even have a conversation about some of the historical inaccuracies in the movie as well. But the link is in the chat. The link is in the chat once again. Would love for you all to tap in. Ghost, you could tap in. Sister Jones, you could tap in, and we can have a conversation about the Woman King film. If you haven't seen the movie, no white savior complex. This is true. There wasn't a white savior. I was happy to see in the film that the brother who was a mulatto, as we know in the film, the young man who came to Dahomey. Dahomey is in present-day Benin, if you're unfamiliar with where Dahomey was located in present-day Africa. And as we know, his mother was a Dahomeyan woman. His father was white. And the fact that, what really got me was the white guy was supposed to be his friend or whatnot, right? And when he took umbrage with, some of the sisters from Dahomey being sold, the white guy was like, listen, you better calm your ass down. I can have your ass up on our block, So that was rather really eye-opening to me. But then, of course, at the end, he helped free some of the brothers and sisters and allowed them to kill the white guy. So definitely was a shout out there. So that was a great part in the film. As we know, I was very happy to see that. So as we know, unfortunately, oftentimes many of our brothers and sisters who come from a mixed racial heritage or background could be conflicted. As we know, we twisting my hair, we'll try to tap in when done. And it's quite all right. As you know, sister, you don't have to cam up. You don't have to cam up to be part of the conversation. You can keep the camera off. And then, of course, you can, do your hair. But shout out to your sister. I know you're rocking that natural, so it's all love. So that was something I really liked in the film. And, of course, we know from a Pan-African perspective, we don't blame the person for how they got here, right? What we look at, of course, is if you're Black-minded or not. If your collective vocation is in helping restore African people to our traditional greatness, then we believe you're down for the cause. Also, as we know, many of the fathers and mothers of the Pan-Africanist movement and or of mixed racial ancestry. So we don't blame the person for how they got here. It's just about your mindset and if you're willing to put the work in. So, but once again, want to have a conversation about the Woman King, right? Like I stated before, it exceeded my expectations. Great film, great acting, great cinematography. Want to have a conversation. Was the oil general a Muslim man? But he was depicted as such, right? I kind of thought the same thing, as we do know Islam had penetrated the Western Sudan, also known as West Africa, by that time. And of course, the oil empire was in Nigeria. So my thoughts were that it could have been that he was a Muslim man. So House of Fulani, maybe. So absolutely. But with that said, listen, the link is in the chat. Come tap in, be part of the conversation, share your thoughts. What do you think about the film? If you watched the film, if you didn't watch the film, what are some of the concerns that you may have going into watching the film? We'd love to have this conversation regarding the Woman King, right? So many people, of course, took umbrage with this concept of the Woman King, that this is a woman trying to usurp the man, being a king, so on and so forth. But when you watch the film, that was not the case whatsoever. It was not a situation, as Dr. T. Hassan Johnson stated, where it was intersectionality on steroids. There was not a situation in which the men were effeminate, weak, and passive and unwilling to defend the nation, and the women had to stand up and do the job that the man wasn't willing to do. That was just not the case whatsoever. So actually, if you learn the actual history about, of course, the female warriors of Dahomey, they always served as a personal guard to the king. But after, of course, King Gezo had his brother removed via a coup, part of appeasing the female warriors was to allow them to become part of what the actual military, right? Not just his personal guard, but part of the actual military engagement, of course, battle strategy as well. So very important there. Also, for anyone who does not know, we do know that when the French sought to take over Dahomey, what ended up taking place was the female warriors actually went to battle with the French. And as we know, that didn't end well. They had two decisive battles in which they were, unfortunately, for the most part, we could say, slaughtered, right? And by most assessments or accounts, they didn't record even one kill. Part of that was due to the fact that the French had better weapons at the time, particularly firearms, guns, so on and so forth. But please, the link is in the chat. We'd love to have a conversation about the Woman King movie. I went and saw it this afternoon. And it's only about 2 hours and 15 minutes. Goes by very quickly. As I said before, it is a good film, so I have to give credit where credit is due and be objective regarding the film. But there was some historical inaccuracies in the movie, which unfortunately tends to be the case when you're watching a Hollywood film. Typically, the only time you watch a film that is historically accurate is if it's actually a documentary, and even sometimes that can be questionable, right? Particularly depending on who was actually leading the funding, or they can omit information. But definitely want everyone to tap in. See, we got some more people that's joined the live. So appreciate everyone out there. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button, subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell as well. Want to have a conversation regarding the Woman King movie, or you can even share in the chat. You can let me know, have you seen the film yet? And if you haven't, do you plan to? So definitely want to know that. If you haven't seen the film, do you plan to? Why or why not? So don't be a stranger, but a ghost. I hope you're still there. You can share with me your thoughts about the film, why you're going to see it, so on and so forth. So definitely want to get people's perspective on The Woman King. But I would give it, I would say 3 stars, right? If I was a movie critic, I would get 3 out of 4 stars. And particularly only just because, of course, the historical inaccuracies. But it was a good film, great acting. Like I said, Viola Davis, she really did her thing. So I have to give credit to Viola Davis. She's a great actor, and she, once again, she shined like the star that she is. So definitely got to show her love. So once again, I hope my brother Tree, Anthony Talbot, is in the house. But definitely want to get some people to come on and have a conversation about the film. If you haven't seen the film, just what are your thoughts overall? Of course, there's been a lot of discourse, of course, in the Black community about the movie. So you can share your thoughts about that as well. What are your thoughts? What do you think about the film? What have you been hearing people say about the film? And then we could take it from there. Brother Ghost, what's good?
How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
All right, doing good.
So what are your thoughts? You haven't seen the film yet, but what are your thoughts regarding why you're going to see the movie? What have you heard people saying about the film? So on and so forth.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, I'm obviously interested in seeing it. I just, like I was saying in there, I didn't want to go to the theater when it was packed. So,
Right.
just kind of wait it out and, get there when I can. But yeah, I mean, I'm just interested in seeing it. I know a little bit of the history, but I don't know, as much as you probably do, or the full scope of the history or anything. But it should be interesting. I'm liking the reviews that I'm hearing, at least that it's not, a situation where they're trying to kind of portray it as something that wasn't historically accurate, or, isn't, the Hollywood, shuffle. You know what I'm talking about. So yeah,
Right.
but I'm glad that they're not trying to portray it like that. So that's good. And it sounds like it's a good movie. I've heard a couple reviews. So yeah, I'm interested.
Absolutely. And shout out to Brother Hassani Carter. My boy Tree is in the house. He says, I haven't seen it. I plan to. I had a chance to read a bit about the tribe, though. So just a quick one. You know how I am, Brother Tree. But the proper term would be ethnic group rather than tribe. Tribe, of course, is a connotation of something that is pejorative and negative, of course, even primitive. So we prefer the term ethnic group rather than tribe. But yes, they were a fierce group. You're going to see that in the film. They were taught to not feel pain, for lack of better words. And you're going to see that in some of the scenes. But of course, they unfortunately were slaughtered by the French. And that led to, of course, the kingdom of Dahomey absolving, right, capitulating, and of course, existing no more. Some of the historical inaccuracies, Brother Trias was some of the historical inaccuracies was the fact that the general, played by Viola Davis, was the one who was promoting this concept and idea of we need to end the slave trade, which isn't true. Historically, it was the British that came to the kingdom of Dahomey and said, you need to stop the slave trade. The idea of her promoting we should sell palm oil was something that King Gezo actually promoted, rather than, of course, Viola Davis. And of course, this idea of they wanted to end the slave trade because they saw it as a dark, vicious cycle that was causing them to actually be members of their own oppression is something that's historically inaccurate. We do know that many African nation states during the time of the transatlantic slave trade. And I stated before at the top of the broadcast, I don't like using the term slave trade because I think it's an inaccurate depiction of what actually transpired when you're selling, human beings as capital. That kind of connotates the idea of a trade being business gone bad with collateral damage. And we know that's not truly what happened. But what ended up transpiring was the nation states, including Dahomey, tended to try to end the slave trade once Europeans started encroaching on their land. The Europeans became more powerful. They wanted more slaves and said, we're going to even take more land. And then that is when, unfortunately, many African nation states started to push back against the slave trade. But by then it was, of course, already too late. Europeans had made significant inroads. And as a result, that ended up of course, being one of the issues. That's an example, but Talbot, on some of the historical inaccuracies. Brother Ghost, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, no, you good. Thank you for giving a little bit more context there. Like I said, I don't know as much history as you may know, so I'm kind of interested to hear what you have to say. If you have a lot of knowledge on the whole history of the tribe and whatnot. I looked up a little bit and I knew a tiny bit before, but I didn't, like I said, know too much. So I'm probably definitely gonna read up on it.
And we prefer the term ethnic group rather than tribe. So ethnic group. So
okay, what do you mean? You prefer that, or you're saying
that? In African studies, the use of the term tribe is shunned upon, right? Because it denotes a concept of being primitive, right?
Okay.
So in African studies, the proper term that we're taught to use is ethnic group rather than tribe.
Okay.
Yes. So just putting that out there. But yeah, like I said, it was a good movie, but just some of those historical inaccuracies were concerning. The fact that, they kind of had this Pan-Africanist worldview of, well, anyone in Africa is our brother, right? And it's like, that ain't what was going on at that time, right? I mean, it just wasn't going on. These were different nation states warring and fighting with each other. And it got to the point to where they were warring and fighting with each other to capture prisoners of war to sell them to the Europeans. And you're going to see that in the film, right? There was a situation where they on the coast at the port of Ouidah, and the white guy, I think it's from Portugal or France, somewhere like that. He's like, oh, well, the British, they put a blockade, and we having a hard time getting our ships out. And the brother who was, of course, the oil general was like, that ain't your tribal problems aren't my concern. And so then the white man was like, well, the same to you. You know what I mean? So you see the tension that of course was taking place. But I think when you talk about the barracoons and the marches to the coast, these things were very accurate. The fact that Europeans oftentimes on the coast were armed to the teeth because they understood how dangerous the slave trade was, right? Not only to their persons, but everyone involved. So there were some historical accuracies in the film, but overall in terms of the storyline, there was some historical inaccuracies as well. But we tend to find this, of course, when we're watching Hollywood films, irrespective of what group is being dramatized.
Okay, right. Yeah. Now, I saw a review where somebody was saying, and they didn't go into detail about it, but they were saying that the king did say in the movie that, we do have issues with the other tribes because they were breaking away from the oil, right? Isn't that correct? They were breaking away from the oil.
They were paying tribute to the oil. They said, hey, we're not going to do this anymore. And so they decided to go to war with them.
Okay, right. So in the movie, is there anything that where they're openly acknowledging that they are, fighting amongst the other tribes? Obviously, I know they're fighting, physically fighting and showing that, but are they, kind of speaking about it, going into detail about
it? Okay, absolutely. In ethnic group.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Right. But yes, in the film, that is discussed. It actually is. So it's going to show Black girls a strong depiction of themselves as Africans and encourage them to read more about the actual history of Dahomey and Africa in general is a win-win. But it's like I said, this is Brother Hassani Carter. So like I said, I had some concerns with the film, right? But like I said, it showed a strong. And this is typically the issue that I have, and what we tend to see nowadays is this divide and conquer tactics in the Black community. Well, if you want to empower Black men, you got to say something negative about Black women. If you want to empower Black women, you have to say something pejorative about Black men, and vice versa. African Americans versus Caribbean, or Black Caribbeans, and Afro Caribbeans, and continent. We didn't see that in the film, right? Of course, they showed Black women doing their thug thizzle, right? But the Black men in the film were regal, they were confident, they were masculine, they were fearless. Just so to see a positive depiction of Black men and Black women together, for me, I was very happy to see that. Very happy to see. There was a eunuch in the film, so he was a bit effeminate, but I think everyone knows what a eunuch is, and his job was to, of course, tend to the king's harem. So you're going to see that in the film as well. The king got like 14, 15, 20 wives, and all of them were bad, though. So you're going to see that in the film as well. Which, of course, it was historically accurate. I'm leaving this discussion before you ruin it with the spoilers. Right, gotcha. Brother Ghost, you tapping in twice. What's going on?
I think I just clicked out. I'm not sure if that. Oh, shoot. So how do I get out twice? I don't know how to.
All right, let me see.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah.
We're good.
Okay.
No, we're good. Don't worry about it. We're good.
Yeah, my bad. I didn't know what I was doing. So
it's quite all right. So like I said, overall, I think I get a film 2 thumbs up, 3 out of 4 stars. The only thing is some of the historical inaccuracies, but I was just very happy that this wasn't the modern day Hollywood depiction of Black people in which the men are effeminate and incompetent, weak and passive and afraid, and the women have to stand up and put the whole community on their shoulders, so on and so forth. But that wasn't the case, right? And so I was very happy to see that there was a positive depiction of Black men and Black women, even though, of course, you saw infighting amongst African people on the continent. So to me, that was greatly appreciated. Brother Ghost, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I muted myself. Yeah, no, I'm still here. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Personally, spoilers don't really bother me, but I see that somebody put in the chat that they didn't want it to be spoiled, but
Right.
I'm still gonna go see it. I'm one of those, I guess, you might say it's weird, but spoilers don't really bother me. What I'm gonna see is what I'm gonna see, so
Right.
whatever you say is not gonna spoil it for me. But yeah, no, I just appreciate the extra history here. Like I said, I'm actually looking up some of it right now so I could read up a little bit more on it. I'll definitely read a little bit more on it, but I agree. I mean, it's definitely a good thing that they're, like I said, portraying, not portraying it in a way that is too historically inaccurate or is they're trying to push a certain narrative.
Right.
Honestly, my opinion on the Hollywood in general, I've been thinking about this lately with some of there's other things going on right now. If you follow, the TV and movie scene, there's a lot of discussion about putting different people of different races and whatnot in the movies and things. And my opinion on that has always been the same. It's they're going to put what they're going to put in there. They're going to push whatever narratives they want to push, whether it's racial or otherwise, so my personal opinion on it, although it can become problematic, especially sometimes, with us, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't speak out against it in some cases, but at the end of the day, they're going to put what they're going to put in there.
Right. And I agree there. But what I would say to that is, if we take umbrage with something that they're putting in the media that we believe that promotes a negative depiction of us as a people, we vote with our eyes. That's how you solve the problem. You vote with your eyes. When they had what was that movie, Kings of Egypt, something like that, right? Where all the principal characters were white. No one went to see it. So you can send more of a message by what? Not supporting it, and it bombs at the box office.
Right.
Rather than going out protesting, hell no, we won't go, because the reality of the situation is they're going to do whatever the hell they want anyway. Right? So you vote with your eyes and you make sure that they lose money. Right? And they don't make a film like that again. But I'm going to actually do a show later this week on the Little Mermaid backlash. Right? And many people, of course, are hype, the Black woman being cast in Little Mermaid. And we know this is only the 3rd time there's been a Black woman lead in a Disney film. The first time was when they did the live action Cinderella remake back in the late 90s, where Brandy, the singer Brandy, the actress slash singer slash, entrepreneur Brandy plays Cinderella. And in
Yeah, I
that,
saw that.
her love interest was an Asian man. And then we had Princess and the Frog, Princess Tiana. Her love interest was an Italian man, right? And then, of course, we have Little Mermaid, black woman, being played by Halle Bailey.
Chloe Bailey. Yeah.
Chloe, I think Chloe's the older sister. And in this situation, her love interest is what? Once again, a non-black man. So the real question we have to start asking is this something that's being promoted to our young women? Malcolm X always stated that, progress isn't someone giving you something or doing something for you. Because if they ever give you something to do something for you, they could always take it back. Right. And so we have to be cognizant of, and I even told my daughter this, she's 12, but she used to love Princess and the Frog. And I said, this movie is propaganda. And she's like, what do you mean, Dad? And I said, well, first off, the villain in the movie is a black man, a dark-skinned black man, right? And the knight in shining armor is a white guy. What message you think that's sending to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old girls at a very early age?
Right.
Right. And so these are the things we have to be cognizant of. So we have to, like I stated, vote with our eyes. If we take umbrage with something, you vote, you don't support it, you don't watch it. Right? That's what you do. And as a result, it's going to bomb. And then, before you know it, you would think it was a straight to DVD release. You know what I mean? So I think that's what we have to do. Once again, everyone watching, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. We're having a conversation about the Woman King movie. I saw it today, gave my review, my thoughts. Jump in, be part of the conversation. I'm going to put the link in the chat once again. And we'd love for you to jump in, be part of the conversation where we're talking about the Woman King. And of course, we're going to extrapolate that, discussing some other issues that are related to, of course, Black people, and of course, in film and cinema, television, etc. Brother Ghost, go right ahead.
Yeah, no, that was a good little, speech that you had there. Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with all of that you said there. I don't have any children or anything, and I'm, a grown man, so I'm probably not going to be watching the Mermaid movie, but that is one of the things that I was referring to. You have that, you have Lord of the Rings, the TV show, you have the Game of Thrones, and there's probably some other ones that you or I may know of that we're not thinking of right now, but, it's just a conversation there. But like I said, really, if you really look at it, this stuff goes back a long time. Like you mentioned the one Egyptian movie or whatever, but there's been basically every one, unless I'm missing something, all of those Egyptian movies or the story of, Joseph or whatever it was, all of them have been with lighter skinned, mostly non-African actors. Am I
Yeah, just
right
white
or
folk.
am I wrong?
Just white folk. You can make it plain white folk.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, white folk. Them folk.
So,
right?
yeah. Yeah, so if you think about it, so like I said, man, the whole thing, whatever, then they're like, I'll even give you other examples of like the non-racial things. If you remember when the whole like climate change thing first started getting, well, I wouldn't say it was the first time, but at least that I can remember, it was one of the biggest times around like the Al Gore run for presidency and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They had the what was that movie called? The day after tomorrow or something.
Yes,
they started having
it's a good movie, by the way. It's a good movie. Good movie.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. But they started having that, and they started having a whole lot of movies. As you know, since you're a scholar and all this, you know of like Birth of a Nation starting out with the propaganda. So if you look, and you probably, like I said, you probably know a lot more about it than I do, but it goes back a long, long time that narratives have been pushed through movies and films.
Absolutely,
and
yes.
TV.
Birth of a Nation was a silent film produced by D.W. Griffith that led to of course, the comeback, the second rise of the Ku Klux Klan at the, of course, beginning of the 20th century. Even held President Woodrow Wilson, who was seen by many as the father of public administration. Check that out. I got a master's degree in public administration. This is how I know this. But he actually held a private screening of the film in the White House, right? And the movie Birth of a Nation is considered one of the greatest films of the 20th century by the American Film Association. I think that's what's called AFA, right? So once again, You talk about movies promoting, of course, political perspectives, propaganda, so on and so forth. I think you just hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, man. I mean, yeah, it goes back a long time, like I'm saying, and so that's why my thought process is. And again, it's kind of just like the general civil rights struggle, protests and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I think there is things to be gained from it. I'm not a person that you will probably find marching out on the street or anything like that,
Right,
but
right.
I'm not knocking anybody, and I do appreciate anything that anyone's
Mhm.
doing that is advancing us, but yeah, but I mean, I just don't see a whole lot of point in, like you said, if you're gonna do anything, boycott it by not spending money on the tickets, which at this point they will definitely feel because, obviously with streaming and everything the way that it is, they will feel it if it's
Mhm.
released in the box office and you don't go see it in theaters. They will definitely feel it. So I agree with you on that. Actually, matter of fact, I was watching earlier something I was watching two John Boyega interviews, which is the actor that played King Gezo, right?
Yeah.
So he was kind of saying some things, and he seems, you never know sometimes, but he seems pretty legit, like a pretty legit guy to me so
Isn't,
far from everything
isn't
I've
he the
seen.
brother who said that he only dates black women?
That matter of fact, that was in the interview that was released today. That was in the Breakfast Club interview. He's probably done others, but I watched the Breakfast Club and I
Okay.
watched the Hot 97. So
Mhm.
yeah, so he was and I started watching it because of that. I clicked on some link and then that I ended up watching the whole interview. But yeah, no, he's the guy who said that. But he said things before though, so this isn't just him coming out of nowhere. Like
Right.
he first of all he was some things, excuse me, he was saying some things when he first took the role in Star Wars when I didn't even know who he was, and we
Right.
just knew he was a black British guy and all that. So he was saying some things, and I can't remember exact quotes or anything, but basically it made me look at him and say, okay, this guy is not just the usual, we're shuffling out a random black guy here,
Right.
if you follow what I'm saying. I don't know
Absolutely.
if I'm, yeah.
He ain't stepping fetching. He's not, dancing to music he don't like. He ain't scratching. Yeah, all
Right,
that. I got
right.
you. I got you.
Yeah, yeah. I wasn't sure if I was articulating it well, but yeah, you get what I'm saying. So,
Mhm.
so I kind of took notice on him from there, and then I've been and I also happen to be a fan of some of the things that he's been in. So, I've been kind of following him. So when I saw this, it didn't surprise me at all. But I saw that it was a Twitter conversation, and at first I was like, okay, what is this? Like, what are they putting him
Mhm.
in some weird situation, asking him some crazy questions, or what is the deal? So that's why I was originally checking it out, but and some of that probably was what was going on, but yeah, he gave a good answer, and he said a lot more also in that interview. As a matter of fact, too, I would say if you're interested in it, it's definitely something you should watch. But
Definitely.
and then what else did he say? He said I mean, he said a couple things. Oh yeah, but one other thing he did was now obviously there's a lot of this is kind of a murky situation, but during the pandemic time and after the George Floyd stuff, I think he made a couple public statements
Mhm.
and he went out and I believe he participated in several marches and things like that. Which again, like I just told you my thoughts on some of that, but the fact that he's a major Hollywood actor. See, I would say there's a difference sometimes between an actor such as him versus say there was athletes that went out there, but the difference is that it's not really the same platform. I feel
Mhm.
like it's harder to cancel some of these athletes, especially if they're retired or whatever. It's
Right.
harder to really like cancel them in the same way that you can cancel that type of actor, because if he does something that is not desired of him to be doing, it's way easier to just take him off the A-list films and TV shows. You
Right.
know.
And he did a great job in the movie as well. He did a great job playing King Gezo. I got to give him props. Like the brother's a good actor. He's a very good actor. Very good
Okay.
actor. Yeah, so he did a
Yeah.
great job as well. So maybe he might get a nomination for best supporting actor, in my opinion.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Good.
definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you? So do you have any comments on like all the different individual performances and things like that? Or?
in the film. Well, like I said,
Yeah.
I did like how they introduced the white folk. Like when they introduced the white guy, the Europeans, the way the music was set up and everything, you knew that they were the villains. Like it was very clear. So, and as the sister stated, there was no white savior complex. There was no situation where there's a good white guy and he's trying to help. Nah, it was none of that. It was very clear. Okay, this is what's taking place. We, unfortunately, as African people, irrespective of our particular nation states, are engaging in this trade, and we're attacking each other. We're accumulating prisoners of war, and then we're selling on the white folk, right? It was just very clear because that is an accurate depiction of what took place. The only other thing that wasn't in the movie was the fact that also criminals, right, could be sold into slavery. Reminds you of now, right? And what ended up taking place was, unfortunately, because of the high price and cost that of slaves, that in many nation states, the king would actually create so many laws that it was almost impossible to not break a law. And then, boom! As a result, you were a criminal, you were sold into slavery. So there was an economic aspect. There was an economic incentive to criminalize people so that they could be sold into slavery. And many people even argue today, when we talk about the carceral state, that there's an economic incentive to criminalize people here in America that could go to work, of course, in these prisons, oftentimes even in for-profit prisons. So it's funny how, history oftentimes repeats itself.
Okay. Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah. No, it definitely is funny how that works. Although, if you think about it, of course, we do have a lot of the same actors at play. So, and by
Yes, sir.
actors, I mean,
Yes.
people, not not literal actors. So,
Right, right.
yeah, yeah. So yeah. If you think about it, the system is involving the same actors and in some cases possibly with the same goals in mind.
Absolutely.
Not to
Absolutely.
basically repeat what you just said, but yeah, but that's pretty much still the situation, unfortunately. So yeah, that's very interesting though. I'll have to. What you said about incentivizing it is a little interesting. Like I said, I know a little bit more so of the general history of the area, not so much too much specific Dahomey history or any of those ethnic groups. I remember to say that this time in the area, but yeah, what I knew was obviously the incentive was once the Portuguese and whomever, mainly I believe the Portuguese at first, had started raiding the coastline. I knew that obviously there was incentive to capture slaves in order to you know whatever it was that they were acquiring,
Absolutely.
trinkets, goods,
Right.
legitimate things that they actually possibly felt they needed, such as rifles and so on and so forth,
Right.
food, whatever, what have you. But I guess the way that you're saying it is a little bit like even the kings were starting to essentially criminalize people for no
Absolutely.
reason other than to generate profit, which I guess
Right.
I didn't see it as that. What I thought was that it was more so based on just forgive me, but I'll have to say like tribal warfare just to get my point across. Like
Mhm.
you
Well,
know,
and so here's the thing. And I can speak on this. I took a class on the transatlantic slave trade when I was an undergrad, right? And so one of the things that we learned was that there was a situation the professor told us to where in one nation state that people would climb a tree, get coconuts or whatever, and that if a person climbed a tree and they died, they fell from the tree and died, then one of their family members could be enslaved. I mean, it was wild, and they were just coming up with laws to what criminalized people because it became so lucrative. In fact, there was a Portuguese Brazilian white guy. I can't recall his name. And maybe let me look this up. Who was in bed with the Dahomey, uh, the king of Dahomey, King Gezo. Let me see if I can look up his name real quick. Um, yeah, Francisco Felix de Souza. He actually had a whole complex built in Dahomey. It's still there today. Like if you go to Benin, you could go visit where the Brazilian slave traders complex. His palatial estate was right next to the king's.
yeah, I believe I heard about him actually,
Yeah.
and they
So
they developed
yeah.
a relationship, and he ended up he was exporting a lot of slaves through that guy to Portugal. And yeah, I think I heard about that. I
Yeah,
didn't realize it was the Dahomey. I think it was just something I came across a
yeah,
YouTube
yeah,
video
yeah.
in
The
passing.
Dahomey, the Kingdom of Dahomey, they were one of the preeminent slave trading nation states, right? And they even mentioned in the film that they said, "Hey, how did we accumulate such vast wealth and power?" It was because we're in the slave trade. I mean, they state that in the movie emphatically, like, "Yeah, we out here selling folk. That's why how we got this money. You know what I mean? That's why we what we are." So they don't sanitize the history. They're very honest. Hey, this is what we're doing. This is how we became wealthy. The only difference between what happened in actual history was they had a conversation stating, hey, this is going to end up hurting Africa as a whole. We know that unfortunately that wasn't the thinking, because if it was, it wouldn't have transpired or would have stopped much sooner and earlier than it actually did. But so when I saw that part of the film, I was like, man, I wish this was what actually happened. But real quick, if you're watching, make sure you hit subscribe and the like button, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, hit the notification bell. We're having a conversation about the film, The Woman King. My review of the film, as I stated before at the top of the broadcast, it was a good movie, great acting. Viola Davis did her Thug Dizzle. As I stated before, Viola Davis is one of the few actresses to ever win the triple crown of acting. She's won a Tony Award, an Academy Award, and of course an Oscar, right? So definitely want to show love to Viola Davis, because she truly did a great job. I mean, I couldn't even tell she was acting. I thought it was real life. That's how good she was, right? But also, as I said before at the top of the broadcast, I'm not an advocate of Black people watching movies to learn their history, right? I think we have to do a deep dive into the scholarly literature to learn the history, right? And so very quickly, these are some books, of course, that I had from when I took that undergraduate course on the transatlantic slave trade many years ago. One is entitled The Anthropology of Slavery, a Womb of Iron and Gold. It touches on the internal slave trade in Africa, and of course the external slave trade, which of course was the transatlantic slave trade. This book was written by Claude Meylassou, who of course was a French historian. This is a book in Fighting the Slave Trade, West African Strategies. You could pick this up. Then, of course, last but not least, The Diligent, a Voyage Through the Worlds of the Slave Trade by Robert Harms. And when I took this class, it was a summer course. And one course, we had 6 books that we had to read from cover to cover. So many people, when they think of or they speak ill of AAAS, African American Studies, many people argue this isn't a true academic discipline, which is false. But those of you who do not know, Black Studies is a reading intensive discipline. I'm gonna say this one more time. Black Studies is a reading intensive discipline. If you think you're gonna go in there, watch a couple of documentaries, write a reflection paper, and talk about slavery, you are sadly mistaken. It is a reading intensive discipline. So if you are not a voracious reader, you may not want to take a Black Studies course. But if you are a voracious reader, or if you want to become a voracious reader, or if you really want to be about that life and you're intellectually curious, I would implore all of you to take 1, 2, or even major course in Black Studies. And I'm saying that because, of course, I majored in Black Studies at the undergraduate and, of course, graduate level. So once again, we're having a conversation about The Woman King, and appreciate you, Brother Ghost, for allowing me to share that little tidbit. But Sister Jones, I hope you're still around. I'd love for you to tap in, be part of the conversation. I know you stated that you were doing your hair. So I hope you're good to go. And once again, as you know, you do not have to cam up. But we're having a conversation about The Woman King, my movie review. I think it was a great film, great cinematography, great acting. There were some historical inaccuracies, but of course, as you know, this is the norm in Hollywood. But my fears, my concerns were found to be fleeting, right? My concerns with what Dr. T. Hassan Johnson called intersectionality on steroids, in which oftentimes what we've seen in the media now are Black women in a situation in which they want to be respected, unfortunately. Well, respected, as they say, like white men, feel like Black men, and pedestalized like white women. And oftentimes that comes at the expense of Black men being seen as effeminate, docile, and of course, inept. But that was not the case in the film. The Black women, who of course were soldiers, were not masculinized in any way, shape, or form, and the Black man weren't depicted in a very effeminate manner. And so, definitely want to give a shout out to that we even saw this concept of duality in the film, where that when they talked about King Gezo, they talked about he believed in duality and equality between the man and the woman, right? Which of course we know goes all the way back to ancient Kemet, where there was this concept of duality and what was also known as co-regents, right? That the queen and the pharaoh were co-regents on the throne, right? And that she had the ability to lead and make decisions because they believed that she, of course, was the intellectual equal of the man and did not diminish his power as a man in any way, shape, or form for the woman to be a co-regent. So we saw that in the film as well. So definitely, I think that was a very positive aspect of the film, where we saw the king believing that the black woman, the woman, of course, was equal to him. So with that being said, I'm gonna open it back up. Once again, the link is in the chat. Make sure you hit thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. We're having a conversation about the Woman King movie. Brother Ghost.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate you, everything that you're doing here on the channel. So I just figured that I would, tap in here. I know you sometimes have people kind of just lurking in the comments, not too many people coming up and whatnot, including myself. So I just figured I would come on here, even though I have not seen the film and
Hey.
don't have too much to offer. But
yes, and that's quite all right though, because as I stated, going in, I had some reservations, I had some concerns, right? As I do with all historical films. So many people, of course, when you come off as someone who's black-minded, particularly if you're a black man and you're masculine, there's an assumption that this man must be sexist, right? I get that a lot. But of course, that's not the case. But my concern was simply with all films of the historical inaccuracies. I can remember the movie Selma. I remember my son was maybe 6 or 7 at the time. I think he was 6. The movie came out, and I told his mom, my ex-wife, don't take him to see the movie. She said, why? I said, because it's going to be historically inaccurate, and I guarantee they're going to depict Malcolm X in a negative light. So, of course, she didn't listen to me, which is why we aren't together, right? Why we're divorced. And she took him to see the movie anyway. And one of the scenes in the movie was they had the character who was depicting Malcolm X state that I really don't have a plan. I'm just trying to get people riled up. As anyone who knows, the history of Malcolm X, the late great El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, right, knows that is completely inaccurate. That Malcolm X had a plan when he left the Nation of Islam. Not only he created the Muslim Mosque Inc. for Black people who wanted to practice Islam outside of the nation, but he also created the Organization of African American Unity. That was modeled after the Organization of African Unity. And he and Dr. John Henry Clark wrote the charter for the Organization of African American Unity. It was a written document. I have a copy of it. A week before he was assassinated at his dining room table, right? So this whole idea that his goal was just to get people riled up, he had no actual plan, he was a demagogue, it's just completely false, right? And so, of course, I've always taken umbrage with our history being depicted in movies. However, with that being said, I do know that for many people, they say, well, our history needs to be depicted. Everyone else's history is depicted, and we want to see ourselves portrayed in a positive light. So I say Black Power to that. Like I said, the film, it was a good movie, but as I said, I always have reservations because I'm more of a person, I want to read the actual literature, right, rather than watch a movie, right? So with that being said, I appreciate you, brother, coming on. If you could, have your friends and well wishers tap in as well. But I just want to give my perspective because many people, of course, including myself, had some reservations about the film, particularly due to the trailer. Right. And then you think of the title, right? And we do know that, unfortunately, oftentimes when we look at many people in the power structure, there seems to be a push, an impetus, or a move to, of course, almost remove Black men from the equation as if we don't exist. Right. And so, of course, I felt that, my thoughts were that going into the film that may be something that was depicted in the movie, but that wasn't the case in any way, shape, or form.
absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a great thing, and I definitely think that will actually, motivate a lot of people that might have been skeptical to come out and see it. Because if I didn't hear that, to be honest with you, I still was kind of, considering. I would say I was 50-50 on it. I wasn't totally. I don't usually just dismiss things outright unless the trailer was just so clearly, biased.
Right.
But yeah, now that having heard from people that I don't think would say otherwise if it wasn't the case, I think that I definitely am a little bit even more motivated to kind of go see it. Now, at the end of the day, like I said, I still think like And I wanted to ask you, like, are there any other subliminal messages that you do feel were maybe pushed in the movie, or is there anything that, aside from the inaccuracies, which we've kind of covered a little bit, but like, is there anything in there that you felt like maybe they were pushing something, like
So,
whatever it was?
so I'm glad you asked that question. So I watched the movie intently. Like I was sitting by myself. I didn't eat. I didn't buy any popcorn, snacks, pop, anything. I'm just watching the movie, and I'm talking about I had notepad out the whole nine, right? Because I'm looking for these subliminal messages. They're trying to put this in. And no, there was none of that. I can actually say there was none of that. None of that. Okay, we're gonna try to backdoor this concept of ideal in. Nothing whatsoever. Now there was no love story between the white guy and the black woman. Nothing. No white savior. Nothing whatsoever at all. Listen to me, brother. At all.
Right.
And I'm surprised. I was surprised by it. Like, I mean, I was surprised, like because I was waiting for the bullshit. You know what I mean? I'm waiting on it. Like they're gonna bring this in at some point. Didn't happen at all. At all.
Okay. Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, I know, right? So I trust you. And then when you look at who wrote the plot? Who wrote the story, the script, right? It was white women, right? And then you come in and I couldn't say it wasn't the case at all. Wasn't the case. There was no subliminal messages whatsoever in any way, shape, or form. And so there was a situation early in the film where the young lady who ended up joining, the female warriors, her father was going to marry her off to like an older guy. Like he was older. He probably was like, he looked like maybe he was in his 50s and she's like 19. And so he's talking to her and she doesn't say anything. So the dude smacks her like right in front of her dad. You know what I'm saying? And so she's like, well, I'm not going to be with you. I don't want to be with a man who abuses me. So I'm thinking like, oh man, they're about to try to promote this idea and concept that black men are just abusive. But that wasn't the case in the film. And what you saw was that everybody in the film, everybody at that time, men were just, there were guys who were about the right things and were good people, and there were guys who were about the wrong things and were bad people. So, and you see that in the film, like there were dudes who were about the right things, and there were men who were not about the right things. So, like I said, it was a good film. I can't say that there were any backdoor ideas or plots to try to promote a nefarious message or disseminate this dissension amongst black men and women. I can't say that whatsoever.
Okay, yeah, that's good. And to be honest with you, I do think that Hollywood, I think that, well, I know the actors because I've heard a lot of them speak on it, but I think Hollywood and the actors and a lot of, especially the film critics and maybe the scholarly people like yourself are aware of some of these, tropes and narratives and whatnot, especially recently because I was actually when I first saw Black Panther, I didn't read Marvel comics, just to explain. Like, so I didn't really, when all this stuff started coming out and becoming big, I knew some of these stories, but I didn't grow up reading these things. I never just been into it that much. So, when I saw Black Panther, it was just, to me, it was just like, okay, there's some black people and, Wakanda and blah, blah, blah. And I had seen the Shaka Zulu show. So I kind of, there was some things in there that I felt like were kind of taken from that. So I kind of knew some of the things to expect, but I didn't, I didn't have, I guess, the backstory that some people might have had. So I went into it just thinking like, okay, it's nice, a bunch of black people here and, it's a good movie and whatnot. And then afterwards, I started seeing a lot of the analysis of, okay, this is what Killmonger is representing. This is what, what's his name? Chadwick Boseman's character was representing.
T'Challa.
T'Challa, and all the other little things that some of the things I was kind of seeing a little bit with some of the women, although the main characters were between, I would say, Killmonger and T'Challa. So they had some female warriors in there and whatnot, but it wasn't like, I didn't feel like there was anything that was pushed in terms of that specific, like, narrative of, the whole strong black woman and, the men are just sitting around type of thing. But there were other things that might have been pushed, but that what didn't seem to be one. But But I
No, what?
do think what did happen though, I think that just looking at some of these so-called black films, I think people started looking at, because I saw an article, um, and I want to say it was written by a white guy. I'm not entirely sure. I can't remember, but I read through it a little bit. And basically, it was breaking down everything, like any kind of narratives that might have been pushed, anything that was in there that people might have not have picked up on, right? And it was really broken down by somebody that really knew it and even knew the history of the whole Marvel comic and all that stuff, which, as I said, I didn't know. So it was kind of interesting. But so I say all that to say that, long story short, people are aware of some of the things that have been going on, including people outside of the black community, I think. And so it's kind of like something where people are watching, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Is what I'm So I don't think it's something where they can just, you know, blatantly kind of make it like, oh, we're just gonna push all this and no one's gonna pick up on it. So
Right. Right,
yeah.
and that may be the case. I think that may be the case. I think maybe when they went to Viola Davis and said, "Hey, we want you to play this character," she may have said, "Well, listen, if you're going to do this, it got to be a certain way." Right? I don't know if actors have that much power or pull. I'm not in the in that industry, but it would be
Sorry
my
to cut you off, but real quick, that's actually what John Boyega said. He said that she did do that. And that's
mm,
why he said this is exactly what he said. You can look it up in the interview, the Breakfast Club interview. I think it was either that one or the Hot 97, but one of them he said that it would not have been able to be made the way that it was if it wasn't for her directly. And he said that, I guess they got some big wigs behind the scenes. I don't think he mentioned any names, but he said that they had to get them on board, and she was able to use her clout to basically get that done. And I'll
right.
let you
But yeah,
go on.
it was a good film. The strong black women tropes weren't there. The weak black man tropes weren't there. It was actually a good movie. Literally.
Right.
Great acting, cinematography, the whole nine. So, like I said, I had some concerns, right? Many people say, well, the woman king, and they're kind of putting this woman in this masculine role, which we tend to find white feminists always have done. They try to make black women be masculine so they could be seen as the angelic, soft, and pretty and beautiful woman, right? But that just wasn't the case in the film. And what I did like, because throughout the film, she's playing the role of the general, right? But at the end, when she becomes the co-regent, when she gets to sit next to the king on his throne, you see her in her not in her uniform, but actually in what queenly attire, and you could see that she looked soft and feminine and beautiful. So that was for me a great part of the film as well. So and that of course it was at the end.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And my concern would be more so like, I don't have so much of an issue with if it's historically accurate and this was an all female unit, and obviously they're fighting, so obviously there's going to be some sort of somewhat masculine behavior involved in that, right? So I don't actually have an issue with that. Like, I don't expect them to be the most dainty, like
But
fighting
the
in
thing is, and
dresses
I
and
get it, but the thing
warfare.
was,
So
even though they were fighting, to me, they didn't come off as masculine. Maybe it's because I was in the military as well. So, man, I'm
okay.
used, but they just seem like female soldiers. You know what I mean? To me, and then part of it is because when they were fighting, many of the fight war scenes, they were fighting along with the male soldiers.
Right.
So to me, it was just, hey, this is a woman who's a soldier who's fighting. And part of that is because I was in the military, and so I have a background of seeing that, and it's normalized to me. But
Yeah, no, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
yeah,
no, I mean that's all very good then. Yeah, but like I'm saying, like, as long as it's, if it's accurate historically. Now, what I would say I would have an issue with is, say, like, if they would have taken, I'll use, because this is specifically about an all female unit, so it's kind of hard to use
mm,
this as an example. But let's say like you have Wakanda, and let's say instead of having the male characters that were kind of leading and duking it out, let's say that you replace them with female characters and basically made the whole story, or you put them above the male characters, which again, if it was historically accurate, fine. But like I'm saying, if they took a fictional movie, or they just kind of altered the storyline to create some sort of narrative, then that's something that I would take issue with. But if it's accurate, you know, and it makes sense, then you know it is what it is. At that point, I don't really have
Absolutely.
an issue with it.
Absolutely. Ella Jones, appreciate you tapping in.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay, good. I was having some trouble getting in.
But I'm glad you're here. So what do you have to contribute to the conversation?
Um, Before I actually seen the movie, I definitely had reservations.
Hmm.
I was one of the people was like, man, not another strong black woman trope.
Right.
Definitely was like, I don't know, we need any more white savior complex movies, but yeah,
Hmm.
none of that was present.
None of that was
And
present. Where are you calling
my
from, by the way?
I'm in Alabama.
Okay, shout out to the Heart of Dixie, right?
Right.
Right. Yeah, I know Alabama, the Heart of Dixie. Just want to say, I'm gonna dive into something real quick. Ohio State's gonna whoop that tail this year. All right,
Okay, roll tide.
back to the
Nope,
topic at hand.
nope.
Hey, y'all ain't got no offensive line this year. Y'all ain't got no offensive line. It's a wrap for y'all.
Okay, we'll have to talk about that
Yeah,
off
we're gonna talk.
topic.
Hey, let's stay focused. Let's stay focused. So yeah, sister. And what part of Alabama are you in? Birmingham, Montgomery, Huntsville,
Montgomery.
what?
Montgomery.
Okay, Montgomery. Okay, very good, very good. I know my ex-wife. She was from Selma.
Oh, yep.
Yeah,
Right down the
Dallas
road.
County, Edmond Pettus Bridge, all
Mm-hmm.
that good jazz. So okay, so of course, as you said, that you had reservations regarding the film. But what are your thoughts of the film overall?
I think they did a good job. I do agree with the historical inaccuracies that you mentioned. What else is
Well, of
no?
course you agree. It's my show. No, I'm joking. I'm just playing with you. You can disagree with me anytime. So, real quick, because I didn't state this from the start, but my position is facts, not feelings. You could disagree with me 100% as long as you
Mhm.
undergird your position with factual information. So, you could disagree with me. If you bring something in that I didn't know, I'd be like, cool, I didn't know. So, that was a joke. But once again, you could disagree with me at any time. I'm not going to trip.
Yeah. Man, I'm trying to see where I start. Okay, so King Gezo's character, I think John Boyega did a great job.
Yes, he did.
Um, Multiple wives, eunuch. He seemed like he had control and order, but he always took the council into consideration. So it seemed like he had good leadership.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so, but one thing I think was rather particular was they showed the eunuch. So the eunuch was there as well. So many people,
Mm-hmm.
we think of, okay, he has all these queens, all these wives, and who's managing the harem? Well, you saw the eunuch there, and of course they made them eunuchs so they didn't have to worry about them sleeping with their wives, of course. So I thought that was rather something to consider as well. Go ahead, sister.
Oh, hold on for a second.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so yeah, I do think he played that role very well, very well. So I would love to get your thoughts on the brother who, of course, was a mulatto. Of course, his mother was Dahomey and his father was European. What are your thoughts on his role in the film, and your thoughts regarding what he did to help, of course, the Dahomey women when they were captured and, of course, were being held in the barracks? And but a ghost you could tap in as well while Sister Jones squares away the technical difficulties she's dealing with.
Okay, yeah. I'll be interested to hear what she has to say from a female perspective as well.
Absolutely.
Although it sounds like she's pretty much on the same page as both me and you. But yeah, no, it'd definitely be interesting to hear from you guys because I know you're probably tired of hearing from somebody who hasn't seen the movie. So it's all good though.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
Can you
Go ahead,
repeat the
sister.
question? You said something
Yeah,
about
so
the
so
mulatto
yes, the
man.
brother who the mulatto brother, of course, his mother was Dahomean, his father was white. He returned to Dahomey. Um, what are your thoughts on the role he played in the film, particularly in helping the sisters escape um, when they were in the barracks on the coast in Ouida?
Yeah, I think they kind of drove the point home of the internal conflict that a lot of our biracial brothers and sisters kind of deal with on a daily basis. His was probably, of course, a little more serious because he was actually saying it for the forefront. Like, you know, when he landed on shore, he was kind of taking in, like, you know, looking at the trees and the sand. And then once he hit the port, you know, his kind of heart, it seemed like his heart dropped when he seen his brothers in
Yeah,
chains.
it sure did. Yeah, it bothered him. And then the white guy was like, "Yeah, this savage ass continent." And then the other part was when he took issue with them being sold, and the white dude was like, "Hey, you better calm your ass down. You better be glad I ain't got you up there." And
Right.
this
So
was his
still, you know what? The way he explained, he said they had grouped together. I was like, they're probably his brother, his half brother. You know, ain't no telling back
no,
then.
hey, but you know how it go down with them. It don't matter. If you ain't all the way white, we ain't fucking with you. You know how it go. You know how that go.
Right.
Right. And I know I got homies who, of course, are what they would consider biracial. I say they're African because, you know, as a Pan-Africanist, we don't care how you got here. It's your mindset, you know. But they've shared that with me as well, that they've had those experiences. So yeah. So, and of course, what I liked at the end was, of course, when he turned on him and took the knife and freed the brother and let them kill dude and drown him in the ocean.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was nice. I thought he was gonna grab the gun, but I said, okay, nice to
Yeah, I thought he was gonna grab the gun as well. Yeah. 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 So it was like I said, it was a good movie. It was a good movie. So and I do want to make you all aware. This coming Wednesday, I'm going to be doing a show on if you could be pro-black and marry or date interracially.
I'm looking forward to that one.
Definitely make sure. So make sure you hit the subscribe and the like button. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Hit that notification bell. So we're going to do a show on that. And I have a rather peculiar perspective regarding that situation. So definitely would love for you all to come on and be part of that conversation.
Absolutely.
100%.
Okay. Yeah, I saw the notification.
Okay, great. So definitely want you all to come on and be part of the conversation, particularly from a Pan-Africanist perspective. Many people argue that you can date outside your race and be, of course, black-minded, pro-black, so on and so forth. And so I would love to have that conversation. So love to have that conversation. But any other thoughts you would like to share, Sister Jones, about the film?
The young lady who played the 19-year-old warrior, I liked her character because you got to see her growth throughout the movie. Like, she had to go through a journey. She just didn't fall into becoming a warrior.
Right.
I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah,
it kind of reminded me of the first Wonder Woman.
Right. Her experience and training reminded me of when I was in boot camp.
Look, and I'm in the African-inspired sorority, so it reminded me of
it reminded me like, you gotta be an individual, you gotta do what you told, and da 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 da. Yeah, because I was like that when I was in basic training. So, and of course I was 17, not 19, but it took me back.
Oh wow.
So, yeah, I was 17 years old when I shipped off for the military.
Yeah, not to give too much information away, but my African-inspired sorority I'm in, some of the activities and events that we take part in as far as new members, it kind of remind me about the different scenes they had to go through with their training. And, you know, I know there are other African ethnic groups that have sororities. I think the Mende tribe, but Mende ethnic group. I can't remember the name of the sorority they had for women.
Okay.
That was pretty similar.
Now, did you say that you are a member of a African-inspired sorority?
Yes, it's called Uzori Usi Malkia Sorority Incorporated.
Could you put that in the chat?
Sure, we were founded at UAB, University of Alabama at Birmingham, and
yeah, I know
College.
Y'all mascot is like what the dragon or something.
The Blazers.
Yeah, the Blazers. Yeah, UAB Blazers. Yeah, is in downtown Birmingham. Matter of fact.
Right. Yeah.
I know a little bit about Birmingham. It used to be known as Birmingham back in the day as well.
Yeah.
With that being
they just had the anniversary of the bombing 50 years.
Yeah, I did a Black History fact on that. So every day on my channel I do a Black History fact.
Oh yeah, that's right.
The 4 little girls who, of course, unfortunately lost their lives when the 16th Street Baptist Church was bombed by members of the Ku Klux Klan. Of course, all of the individuals except for one ended up being convicted and spending the rest of their lives in prison. The one individual who didn't end up dying before, of course, he could be convicted. But that was an extremely unfortunate situation, but we have to always be vigilant and make sure that we're doing what we can to protect ourselves and our institutions. As you know, they bombed the church because they knew that the church at the time was headquarters for that Black radical tradition of audacious self-assertion in the face, of course, of white supremacy. But sister, you talked about being a member of an African-inspired sorority. So one, I would need to know. So I'm going to have to bring you on. We're going to have to do a show one-on-one about this. I'm just going to be honest with you.
Oh my
If you
God.
got to give me your information, you can put your information in private chat because this is definitely going to have to happen. But if you could tell me why you joined an African-inspired sorority rather than a Black Greek sorority, I would definitely love to hear that.
This was back in 2015 when I was at UAB. I didn't have my woke moment or my awakening yet, but I definitely was like, I'm not Greek, and that doesn't make sense for us to have to go so hard and network and be gung ho about letters that has nothing to do with our ancestry.
Right.
And the two young ladies that I met, they seemed like, at the time they were talking about sisterhood, community service, and they said it's based on key Swahili principles. And I was like, oh, okay. And I remember when I was younger, my dad put me on a step team, and one of the step leaders was from Kenya, and I knew like literally 2 things in Swahili. I said, okay, yeah, I'm definitely gonna. I was interested in it, and never looked back since. Still active.
Okay. Wonderful. That's great to hear. And what did you major in?
My major was health education, community health, but I ended up going back to school to get my nursing degree.
Okay, so I'll take it you're a nurse now.
Yes, I am.
All right, shout out. All right, shout out to the medical industry, also known as the pink collar jobs. Very good, very good, very good.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, they call so we have white collar people who work in corporate, professional jobs, and then blue collar people who do manual labor. And then of course, but from a sociological perspective, they call pink collar jobs people who work in, of course, the medical industry.
Okay.
And part of it is because they call it pink collar because it's associated with, most medical jobs are dominated by what? Women. Most jobs in the medical industry are dominated by women, or predominantly women hold most of the positions. So that's why it's considered pink collar. So yes, absolutely. So appreciate your brother coming on. We just lost a sister. I'm gonna give her a chance to try to tap back in. I know she was having some technical difficulties, but as I said before, man, I think the film was great. Definitely gave a shout out to that. Like the sister said, there was a fear that they were going to promote these tropes about the strong Black woman, so on and so forth. She has to put the community on her back because the man can't do their jobs. And then, of course, as we tend to find, unfortunately, there's a belief that if the woman is being strong, it has to be masculine because the man is effeminate. He is of course, irresponsible and can't be depended upon. But it was great to see that was not the case. And we saw divine African masculine and the divine African feminine being able to coalesce and work together. And I stated before, for me, one of the shining moments of the film, and what was really truly near and dear to my heart, was I saw something that I've always taught to my son and daughter, who fight like they're members of different ethnic groups now, right? But this concept and idea of gender equality. And I'm going to state this because many people know I'm a Pan-Africanist. I've been a Pan-Africanist for about 2 decades now. And that for me, my position has always been in any organization I was part of. I would join a Black organization of any kind that had to practice gender equality. And in those organizations, we would have different initiatives that we would be seeking to create to help better our community and give particularly the younger generation a competitive advantage when they come of age. And in doing so, we always had a male lead and a female lead. If we had a speaking engagement, we would have a press conference we were giving, there had to be a male lead and a female lead. So it was good for me to see that in the movie.
Oh yeah. I don't know. I don't know if it was me, but it seemed like I guess the general of the male dominant army for the Dahomey. I can't remember his name, but it seemed like he really didn't really vibe with her at first until like the end. Is that what you got?
Yeah, I kind of got that as well. But to be kind of honest with you, and this is just from a military background, when you are most people in the military, if somebody is a general or a sergeant or et cetera, and they're in a position in which they can be challenging them for authority in the service, they tend to kind of be like, man, you trying to take over. You know what I mean? You trying to step on my toes. But I think that was more so, in my opinion, due to that was a rank issue rather than
not a gender issue.
A gender issue. Because I was in the military. It was like that. Like, listen, I'm trying to make staff sergeant. You trying to make staff sergeant. What am I gonna do? And if remember, there was a scene in the film and she's like, yeah, Viola Davis character said, well, this is my best friend, but I would step on her face to win a foot race.
Right.
I mean, that's just what it is. It's competitive. When you're in the military, it's competitive. Right. And so you're competing. So yeah.
Yeah, it definitely was a tearjerker too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
and I cried a lot in movies. I didn't cry in this one though. When I was 6 years old, I cried in The Little Mermaid. I did. I cried. I remember,
which part of The Little Mermaid? Wait,
and my brother and sister was looking at me like, man, he's such a baby. I remember they was looking at me like, this dude is such a baby. I cried in The Little Mermaid. I cried at the end of Pursuit of Happiness. Right?
Oh, yeah. That's
I cried at the end of A Miracle at St. Anna. I cry in movies. It's something I do. Matter of fact, every time I watch Malcolm X, I cry at the end when he dies. I've seen the movie 50 times. And every time we get to see when he about to get shot, my daughter like, yeah, he about to start crying and he about to start crying. Like, every time I watch the movie, I've watched Malcolm X literally 50 times. It came out when I was like 8 years old. And every single time they start playing, I Was Born by the River, the tears start flowing.
Oh, yeah, that song, yeah.
I mean, Sam Cooke just do it to you. You know what I mean? So let me ask you this real quick before we log off. You mentioned that the African-inspired sorority, and I got that information. Uzuri, Wezi, Malika sorority. So of course we know Malika means queen in Kiswahili. My daughter's middle name is Malika. Is there a male?
Yes, there is. I was going to type it in, but I'm still twisting my hair. It's
you can share that with me because I would love to be part of an African-centered fraternity. Because one of the reasons I never joined a fraternity was like, I'm not doing this Greek shit. What the fuck I look like? Right? I mean, seriously, I was like, get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? So if there would be an opportunity, I'd definitely be interested in checking that out, looking at it. And I would presume that, of course, part of the values that you all uphold are the Nguzo Saba.
Yes.
Wonderful. And for those of you watching who don't know, the Nguzo Saba are the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. Of course, unity, self-determination, collective work on responsibility, cooperative economics, purpose, creativity, and faith. Absolutely. So listen, I appreciate everyone coming on. Sister, if you could leave your information in the chat as well, definitely want to get in touch with you. We actually do a show where we feature you. You can tell us your backstory. And of course, we could do a deeper dive into, of course, why you joined an African-centered sorority. So that'll be a great conversation. But if that is all, we're going to log off. But before I do, I'm going to give each one of you a chance to give any final thoughts. We could start with Brother Ghost.
Right. Yeah, I don't have too much else to say other than, like I said, thank you for letting me come on. And, like I said, I appreciate everything you're doing with the channel and whatnot. And, I was glad I was able to come on and contribute what little I could today. And, that's about all I have to say. I don't have too much else to say, but just thanks for letting me come on. And it was good to hear what you all had to say about it.
No doubt. And like I said, brother, anytime. Appreciate you, Sister Jones. I'm going to let you close us out.
Just thanks for the opportunity. Definitely look forward to the upcoming stream. And I do like the Black History facts. I do try to share those with my 4-year-old. She, for whatever reason, she only remembers Garrett Morgan from her preschool. But I'm like, okay, we'll get you there.
No doubt. And with that being said, we have a lot of folks, but just want to say once again, especially for our viewer in Alabama, OHIO. We're going to see again.
Here we go.
Again. Don't think we forgot about what happened that night in Miami. We ain't forgotten. We're going to get that back. What was his name? The godfather of soul. Michael Jackson looked up to him. James Brown had that song, The Get Back, Big Payback. Big payback. We coming for y'all. Y'all better hope y'all don't have to see Georgia because they ain't got no offensive line. They're gonna run through y'all like a girl with low self-esteem. Let's keep it above.
Oh, Georgia not even playing by this year.
So they look better than y'all.
Nope.
They look better than y'all. Just keep it real. Y'all, they look better than y'all. Y'all ain't got no offensive line. Y'all ain't got no offensive line. I'm gonna email you, sister. But hey, that's all. Hey, that's a conversation for another day. We'll see you all if y'all make it to the national championship in LA, which is at SoFi Stadium. We will be there.
The shade. All right.
All right. Peace.